Good morning, this is Miss Triangle. So this is going to be 1-3, part 1 or day 1, where we focus on midpoint. So make sure you set up your lines for your Cornell notes. I believe the date I have correct is going to be Tuesday, September 22nd. So please make sure you're putting the date and the topic in the top right here, which is 1-3 part 1 midpoint. That's an I. So make sure you write that. That's just 1 point, so please make sure you do that. Copy your essential question. How do you find the midpoint of a line segment? Copy your learning target 1C. I can use the midpoint formula to calculate the midpoint of a line segment. All right, we have a few vocabulary words. So our first one is midpoint. What does that mean? It just basically means halfway. So I drew a little picture. M is the midpoint here. M is the midpoint. And you can tell it's halfway because each side is 3. In this diagram, N is the midpoint. And I just wanted you to notice these little tick marks mean that each of those line segments are congruent. Okay, so that's what the line segment symbol means, the tick mark. All right, our second vocabulary word is segment bisector. So remember, in English, the prefix bi means two, like a bicycle, 2 wheels. So line L in this diagram right here, line L is a segment bisector. Here's line L, the green line. It's a segment bisector because it cuts line segment AT, that purple line segment, in half. All right, the last thing you need is the midpoint formula, so please make sure you write that down correctly. It's x1 plus x2 divided by 2, y1 plus y2 divided by 2. So it's basically you're adding the x values dividing by 2, adding the y values dividing by 2. And we'll go through how to use that in the examples. Traditionally, I do not give people the midpoint formula and they have to have it memorized. During distance learning, quizzes and tests will be open notes, but it's a good thing to memorize anyways if you can. All right, example 1. So pause the video if you need to set it up. In the skateboard design, line segment VW bisects XY at the point T, and XT is 39.9 centimeters. Find XY. So let's see what we know here. So it's a little hard to see. I'll zoom in a little bit here. But there are these red tick marks. Whoops, I'm on highlighter mode. There are these red tick marks. So we do know that T is the midpoint, and XT, so X to T, is 39.9. So T to Y is also 39.9, and we are trying to find XY. Here's X, here's Y. We want the whole thing, so we are going to add 39.9 plus 39.9. You can use a calculator. You can absolutely use a calculator. So I'm getting 79.8 centimeters. All right, number 2, identify the segment bisector of line segment PQ, then find the length of PQ. So this will be part A. We'll change this to part B. So make sure you're drawing these examples. Pause the video if you need more time. So the bisector, the segment bisector, I'll start with that, of PQ is line N. So line N is the segment bisector, this line right here. Okay, and actually, I think that is actually a ray because it has one end point. So let me change that. Ray MN. Okay. Then find the length of PQ. PQ is the whole length. So it's kind of like the skateboard problem. I like this though because we have to include a few fractions. So I'm going to do 1 7/8 plus 1 7/8. So 1 and 1, I get 2. If you add fractions, I'm going to add 7 and 7. That gives me 14/8. Okay, that's an improper fraction. 14 is more than 8, so I'm going to go ahead and add 1. And then I have 6/8 remaining if I do 14 minus 8. Then I'm going to reduce 6/8. I'm going to divide by 2, and I get 3 3/4. Okay. All right, for part B, the segment bisector looks to me like it's just point M, so I'll write that with a capital letter M. And here again, I'm going to add my fractions, a little bit easier fractions because we're not going to have an improper fraction here. So 2 and 2 is 4, 2 sevenths, and 2 sevenths is 4 sevenths. So remember, you're keeping the denominator, don't make it 4/14 or anything strange like that. So pause the video if you need more time, otherwise I'm moving on. All right, now we're going to add in some algebra. So go ahead and set up your problem. Point M is the midpoint of VW. Find the length. So M is the midpoint, so I know that these two line segments are congruent or equal. So they have algebra. I don't know what they are, but I know they're equal, so I'm going to go ahead and set them equal to each other. You might want to pause the video, see how your algebra skills are, and just see if you can solve this. There's lots of ways you could do it, so if you do it different than me, that doesn't mean it's wrong. I like to move the smaller x first. That's just my preference. 4x minus 3x is 1x. Add 1. So it looks like x is going to be 4. Oops. This is a 4, not a 14. Okay, then you want to make sure you go back. Now that I have my x, go back, plug in x to your two expressions. So starting with 4x minus 1. 4x minus 1, I'm going to replace the x with 4. So 4 times 4 is 16, minus 1 is 15. Now the question just asked for VM, so technically I am done. It takes you probably maybe 1 minute, and it's a really good idea to check your answer. So 3x plus 3, 3 times 4 plus 3, 12 plus 3, 15. It's just a good idea to check. It gives you that peace of mind that your answer is right, but it's not technically necessary. All right, example 5. Now we're kind of getting into the midpoint formula. So I chose this one because the numbers are small, so you get the concept. You can do a graph just to kind of visually see. But you do need to be able to use the formula because some of the points I'm going to give you are going to be, instead of like nice small numbers, are going to be like 500, negative 1,000, and you're not going to want to graph it. So I will show you both. All right, so let's graph it. 2, negative 3. 2, negative 3 is right here. Okay, and negative 2, 5 is right here. And this was J, and this was S. Oops, so, okay. Then, to use your midpoint formula, so here is your midpoint formula. x1 plus x2 over 2, y1 plus y2 over 2. Your first step is to label the points. So 2 is x1, negative 3 is y1. X always comes first, just like alphabetical order, W, X, Y, Z. Where do the ones come from? It's 0.1. So x1, y1. Negative 2 is x2. 5 is y2. Again, x always comes first, and the 2's just come from the fact that it's 0.2. Then you're just going to plug everything in. So for x1, I'm going to put 2. Plus, your formula always has a plus. x2 is negative 2 divided by 2. For my y's, let's see, y1 is negative 3. y2 is 5. Again, you can use a calculator. That's totally fine. 2 plus negative 2 gives me 0. Negative 3 plus 5 gives me 2. Then I'm going to divide. 0 divided by 2 gives me 0. And 2 divided by 2 right here gives me 1. So 0, 1 is my answer. 0, 1 is my answer. Let's graph that and make sure that it makes sense. 0, 1 does seem like it's about halfway. Okay, so that is how you use your midpoint formula. All right, let's try one more. I would encourage you to try this one on your own. Pause the video, set it up, try it on your own, see how you do. I will put up the answer as well. So negative 5, 0 is right here. And A is at 6, negative 3. All right, let's label our points x1, y1, x2, y2. Here's my formula. Oops, I just wrote that wrong. x1 plus x2 divided by 2, y1 plus y2 divided by 2. So if I plug everything in, negative 5 plus 6 divided by 2, 0 plus negative 3 divided by 2, that simplifies to 1/2 and negative 3/2, which actually it would be okay with me if you left it like this. If you prefer decimals, that would also be fine. If you put negative 1 and 1/2, that would also be fine. So any of these would be fine. You can get decimals in your answer. That doesn't mean you've done something wrong. Let's graph it and see. So 1/2, negative 1.5. Yep, there's my midpoint. Okay, so number 7, identify the segment bisector, find RS. If we were in person, I'd have you do this on your own and raise your hand and show me. So I will put up the answer since we're in distance, but you should be able, 7 is kind of a check. So see how far you can get. Pause the video, see how far you can get. So you should be setting these up equal to each other. Okay, solving for x. And x is actually 7.5. Okay, the segment bisector is line N. And then if you go back and put in 7.5, let's see what we get. So you're doing 4 times 7.5. And you can use a calculator if you want. 4 times 7.5 is 30. Plus 3 is 33. Then since we're finding the whole thing, each part is 33. So RS is going to be 66. So RS is 66. Whoops. I wanted highlighter, not eraser. RS is 66. X was 7.5. N was the segment bisector. Okay, so summary, you're going to answer in complete sentences the answers. What is a segment bisector? So what is that? What does it do? How do you calculate the midpoint of a line segment? So the red question is basically, what is your midpoint formula? And then why does it make sense? So I didn't talk about this a ton in the beginning of the video, so I'll talk about it now. But if you look at your formula, x1 plus x2 divided by 2, it's an average. So you're finding the average of two numbers. So that's why it makes sense to find the middle of two numbers to find the average. Like if I want the average of 0 and 10, it's 5. If I want halfway between 0 and 10, it's also 5.